Welcome, everybody, to this very, very special Broadway for Biden event. Today, we're going to be talking about healthcare, where to start. I'm Dori Berinstein, and I'm going to be moderating, and I am thrilled to introduce you to the extraordinary panel that we have today. Dimitri, Vasthy, and Doug, I'd like you all to introduce yourselves, and then we'll get started. Dimitri, why don't you start?
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Dimitri Moise. I am an actor, editor. I work in diversity and inclusion, and I am an HIV advocate. I started out as an actor on Broadway, worked on shows like The Book of Mormon and Beautiful, the Carole King musical on tour. That led me to working on television with Tracy Morgan, Jordan Peele, Tiffany Haddish in The Last OG, which was fantastic. And now I'm actually working on a project with Vasthy, which is going to be it's so exciting, and I cannot wait to get this off the ground. And I'm a former managing editor of Chill Magazine, which was Pride Media's first magazine for men of color. So I was super honored to help bring a national platform through editorial for men of color like me who live their lives label-free. And then I stepped into my work as an HIV advocate, and I shared my status in 2018. Since then, I have been working with groups on the ground as well as nationally, like CDC. I'm a spokesperson for Gilead, and I speak at many different symposiums and universities. So I'm honored to get to be here today and speak up for those who have been historically disenfranchised, particularly those living with HIV who are Black. So I am very honored to be here today.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. Doug.
So I'm Doug Carfrae. I am also an actor, have been an actor for a very long time. I joined the union in 1973. I became a member of the governing board, a counselor of Actors Equity Association in 78, and have been ever since. I became an officer of the Western Regional Vice President in 2003. And so I live actually, while I've done work on Broadway and off Broadway, mostly what I've done is regional theater around the country since I moved to California a number of years ago. I live in LA. And I am a trustee on our pension and health and 401k plans. And I've been doing that since 2000, I think 2005 or 6. And then I became a trustee in 2009. And I do that, and we're in the midst of that right now. I mean, obviously, in the middle of the pandemic, health and pension and all of that stuff is very, very important. And we're working as fast as we can, as hard as we can, to cover as many of the actors as we can, and that's what I'm doing. Dimitri has this long, a very long bio. Mine is not quite so long.
Oh my God.
Other than I have been a union activist for 50 years. That's what I've been doing, and that's who I am.
It's going to be very helpful on today's discussion, for sure. So glad you're with us. Vasthy.
Hi, I am Vasthy, rhymes with Frosty. I am as well as Dimitri, even though he didn't mention, Haitian American. Yes, come on,
Haiti, come on, Haiti. Sac passé,
ma poulet. Haitian American actress. I was on Broadway for about 13 years. I moved to California about almost a year ago to do new stuff, including the Prom movie with Dori. I am a business owner as well. I owned a babysitting agency for 5 years, and I just started a new company called Vasthy's Friends. It's a digital platform with original content made by theater performers for kids, because while adults are usually what everyone tries to change. I've given up on that, and I've decided to just work with kids because it's easier and it's fun. I am a healthcare activist for women. I was not before until I had a huge health scare last year, and then learning more about women's health issues, I realized how much we ignore that, and that's why I'm excited about Kamala, because she's the first person to ever talk about women's health issues.
Thanks, Vasthy. I would love to dive right in and have each of you talk about the stage role that you've had that has empowered you to use your voice. Can you think of, a particular stage role that gave you that opportunity? Vasthy, do you want to dive in?
For me, it was hair. I did hair, and when I was, I can't remember how old I was, but I did it, and it changed. It changed a lot of my perceptions on things, or just opened my mind to different views. I grew up in the South in Alabama, and with Haitian parents. So and Dimitri understands, it's when your Haitian people don't really participate that much in the government, like depending on how old the parents are, because when you're in Haiti, if you participate in the government, then that meant you could maybe lose your life. And so I didn't really understand politics and all that stuff. And it actually got me more interested in understanding how everything works. And so it definitely changed me in that way.
Dimitri.
In 2019, last year, I got to work on a play off Broadway. It was a new play at the Public in Joe's Pub called As Much as I Can. And I got to be the principal character in the play. And coincidentally, the story followed a young Black queer person who received an HIV diagnosis unexpectedly. Sound familiar? So it was the first time since I'd started working. I graduated in 2014 and started working as an actor as soon as I left. And it was the first time I had, obviously it was such a close story to me and my own, but it was the first time that I got to actually step into a role where I didn't have to play something that didn't feel outside of myself. It was the first time where I felt seen for me and not just a Black body on stage filling a spot in the ensemble. And yes, the role was centered around a Black queer person, but that was the point of the story, and it was a Black story. So to be chosen particularly for something where I resonate so deeply with the character's story, but also I'm chosen for my merit. Not that I'm not chosen for my merit, but I feel so often sometimes I'm chosen because of the color of my skin and convenience. So it was the first time that I felt like I could really step into my own as an artist.
Excellent. Doug.
Well, I've been kind of a union activist since I guess I was born. I came out a union person and came out a person who was always going to be a union guy. I call myself a union thug. Actors Equity Association we're not really thugs, but I have spent my entire adult life in the service of actors as a counselor of Actors Equity Association. And so a lot of the shows I've done have amplified what I feel. I did ragtime for a very long time. I did ragtime for a number of years, and it amplified my belief in what I do and why I do what I do and why I have given my whole adult life. And essentially my volunteer work has been Actors Equity Association. And then I was able to do La Mancha, and playing that role, the role of Quixote, is kind of, you're shooting at windmills, you're fighting windmills, and that sometimes feels like what you do when you're working for actors and with actors, that we're trying so hard to make it work, and there is the dream that we hope all people can live. And particularly now that I'm so involved in health healthcare and pension. It's making that dream for actors happen, making sure that actors can get healthcare, and actors, when they get of an age, they can have a pension. That's really important to me.
It's just so evident that the power of theater is undeniable, and all of you, each of you, has had experiences on stage that have given you the opportunity to lean into that, and it just works for the audience on so many levels. I would love to ask each of you to talk about your own personal healthcare journey, because that will certainly inform the rest of the conversation and how the platform supports or doesn't all of the things that we all care so deeply about. Dimitri, would you like to start?
Sure. So my healthcare journey, well, I've always been a sickly child. So, and maybe Vasthy, you will vibe with this, but at least in my Haitian family, vaccines are the way to go. And I was vaccinated from birth, or as a child. So I got my flu shot every single year. And I was definitely someone who was very involved in the healthcare system as a kid and growing up. So healthcare wasn't that uncommon to me. I had asthma, still do, but it wasn't as bad as it was when I was a kid. And I'd be in the hospital twice a year for my asthma. And it was so bad that by the time I got to college, my parents would jokingly, but not so jokingly, I left for freshman year, and my mom was like, "If you have an attack, please do not call the ambulance. Whatever you do, do not call the ambulance. Please take a taxi," because my mom was like, "We can't afford that," and and that was a point that she made sure to tell me before I left to start college. And that always stuck with me. And so every time I see ambulances go by, or I just think of that because my mom yeah. And flashing forward to today, in terms of coming out with my HIV diagnosis, it was something that I was so terrified to do. And, I admit I got a very privileged way to be able to share my status and my story with the world. So that is something I absolutely acknowledge and I am grateful for. And when I made that decision, I realized that I was going to be taking a trajectory in my life that was going to change everything. I was worried that my agents would drop me. I was worried that I would never get cast in a show again. And all these things, the things that I built up into this point would go away because suddenly I'm going to turn into the HIV guy. And the complete opposite happened. And I came out, and it was through HIV Plus magazine, and there was a whole spread, and to see the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands really, of people commenting and sharing their love, and it meant everything to me because I was really struggling with my mental health, and I was at risk of suicide, and I'm on the year anniversary actually this month of that. And to be able to now take something that I thought was going to literally kill me and turn it into what I believe is a superpower, getting to work with a place like Gilead and be able to let them know that while I am so proud to speak on behalf of the lives of so many others who don't have a voice, I also need you to know that I am here to defend those lives as well. And I see too many Black Americans with a lack of access to proper health care, to proper health insurance, to the stigma that exists in our community around HIV, so people won't even get tested. And that's something that needs to be changed. And we need to be able to meet people in communities where they are. And I look around and I realize there isn't really anyone who looks like me, who is my age, who shares the identities I share. And so I understand now that I have somewhat of a responsibility to pass the torch on, and make sure that my Black siblings are not left out and they're heard in this fight.
And changing so many lives along the way. Vasthy, I know your story is very, very profound.
Yeah, so for me, mental health was something that I didn't really understand until last year. And it was because like my body forced me to, not because I wanted to. Basically, everything I learned about healthcare was not my choice. I always say that my brain and my body had like a little meeting, a tete-a-tete, and they're like, she's not listening to me. And then my body's like, well, she's not listening to me. So they're like, let's take her down. And they did. So that's basically what happened. I didn't feel good for years, and I just kept ignoring it because, and Dimitri understands this, when you are first generation American, you do not stop. You accomplish, you accomplish, you accomplish. You were here for a reason. Your family came here for a reason, to give you a better life. We, honestly, as first generation Americans, especially Black Americans, we have a different view of America where it angers us, but we also are very aware of the fact that we would not have the life that we had without it. And it almost like helps us in a way to like keep going and to keep accomplishing things, because we're like, we could be not here and be in a way worse situation. And so I think that's a blessing, and I think sometimes it's a curse. The American dream, I think, is such a great idea, but I think that it is the reason why everybody has a lot of addiction issues in America, because we never think we're doing enough. So, I had done 8 Broadway shows. I'd owned a company. I worked with kids with autism. I did all of this amazing stuff, and for some reason thought it wasn't enough and had to keep going. So the morning of rehearsal for the first day of SpongeBob, I had a miscarriage. And to show you exactly where my brain was as a workaholic, and I don't mean like, oh, I'm a workaholic. I mean like a diagnosed workaholic. I had it and was like, all right, time to go to rehearsal. And then I went to rehearsal, and then I just kept going. I kept going. And then my body got worse, and it got worse. And then I started rehearsals for the prom. And I knew in the first day of rehearsal, I was like, my body felt tired, and I haven't even started this journey yet of doing the show. And we were in rehearsal, and we were doing the shows. I started losing more weight. More hair started falling out. More pain. My stomach was hurting. I was taking like tons and tons of vitamins. I was like, I can do this holistically, doing all this stuff. And then I went to the doctor, and he told me I had like 3 little fibroids in my stomach. And he was like, you can try to cure them naturally and do all this stuff. And I was like, okay. And so I did all this stuff, and they shrunk by like tiny bit. And I took that as a sign to do more. And I was like, great, they're shrinking, I'll do more. So I did even more. I signed on to do these, like, to produce these things and to do all this stuff. And then I went back to the doctor because I was feeling not well. And 3 had turned into 32 tumors. And they were all types. They were like inside my uterus. They were outside my uterus. They were like all, and it is so rare, the kind that I had, that they were shutting down my organs. And so when I went to he was like, you have to go into surgery right away because it's your body's shutting down. And I was like, oh. And then I told him, and I'm not kidding, I said, okay, when are we going to do this? Because I have a callback. Tomorrow on Wednesday, and I have 2 shows. So, and he was like, and he was silent, and I was like, maybe you don't understand what a callback is. And I tried to explain to him what a callback was. I was like, it's a callback. It's really important. And he was like, and I was like, I should not go to the callback. And he was like, he was like, you are dying. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I went to the theater and was like, so apparently I'm dying and I have to have surgery, so I'm taking leave of absence. And and I did, and they got it all out. And it wasn't until right before I went under that I was like, oh, I'm a workaholic. This isn't normal. I still have an eyelash glue from the night before. I did the shows up until I went into surgery. And I was like, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with me. And as I was healing, I started like exploring that more. And it was 2 weeks after surgery where the guests started to leave. And I had my first day alone, and my body just completely broke apart, mentally. And I cried for 4 hours, and I realized that I was going into a depression. And that is when I became aware of mental health and the importance of mental health, because I've been running so fast and I've been distracting myself from doing so many things that I didn't realize that I was running from this sadness and this depression and all these things. So now I'm like, so all that happened, and I learned a lot. I learned about mental health, about how fibroids and miscarriages affect Black women way more than any other, than anyone. A lot of it is because we hold trauma and stress in our bodies, and I think that's so sad. And a lot of women just go through it and don't think that they're alone, and so that's why I'm very passionate about Biden Harris, because both of them, Biden has been talking about miscarriage, the morbidly high rate in miscarriages in women of color for years, and Kamala is talking about it's just, they care, and I'm like, I've never heard anyone say they cared before.
Oh, incredible. Doug, this is a perfect segue into your story, but also thank you for bringing up the Biden-Harris ticket. So, Doug, if you want to incorporate your own story with why it's you're feeling passionate about the possibility of a Biden-Harris administration.
Well, first of all, I have to say, listening to Dimitri and Vasthy's story, it gives me hope. They're the younger generation. These are the people that are going to make the world the better place that it needs to be.
Oh, thank you.
Gives me a little tear. I'm getting a little teary, and that's okay.
That's not fair. I'm going to cry too now.
Me too.
I lived through the AIDS crisis. I lived in New York in the 70s and the 80s when my friends and my colleagues were dying by the hundreds. I thought we got through that. We did. Healthcare at that time, it got scary because it got very expensive, and suddenly the union went from being able to cover a lot of people to being able to cover fewer people. And for me, as an actor, I have gone in and out of coverage my whole life. You work and you get your weeks, and then with those weeks you get your 6 months or your year coverage, and then maybe you didn't work enough, and then you're out of coverage for 6 months, and then you work, and then you're in coverage for a year and a half, and then you're out of coverage for a year. So in my life, and I would say most of the actors I know lives, we go in and out of coverage, health coverage, and that's a horrible problem. It's a horrible problem because I actually just talked about it. Dimitri talked about it. You can't not have health coverage. Health coverage is a right. It is something that we all need to have every day of our lives. No one should go bankrupt or die because they don't have health coverage. And in the midst of this pandemic, now we're back to another time with people dying on us right and left. Some of those people that are dying don't have health coverage, and their families will probably go bankrupt, and they will have lost their spouse or their child or their parent. One of the reasons, not the only reason, I'm so deeply blue. It doesn't really matter. But one of the reasons I really like the Biden-Harris ticket is that they have decided, and they know that healthcare is important. And for us actors who go in and out of, we're covered by the union, we're not covered. When we're not covered, we have to be able to afford to get into the marketplace, to buy coverage somewhere, somehow. And I'm looking at their plans and talking about making Medicare, maybe lowering the age of Medicare, making Medicare something you can buy into at a certain age. That would solve the problem for thousands of our members. Making the marketplace more affordable, making the Affordable Care Act in some ways more affordable, giving just some tax incentives, some tax breaks for those people who might make too much that they don't get any kind of a break, but aren't making enough to really afford the kind of coverage that we need to cover some of the things. And then I'm going to tie it all back around. In the midst of this pandemic, when we're through with this, the mental health care that Americans are going to need is huge. Being alone for hours on end, for weeks on end, 24/7. If you're a person who's a single person and you live in an apartment in New York City and you can't go anywhere and you can't see anybody and you can't go out, the stress on you, emotional and mental stress, is remarkably difficult. And we're going to need all the mental health care we can get across the country. And that, I think Biden and Harris have a plan for that. And those are the kind of things that excite me about where we're going.
Dimitri, do you want to add to that in terms of your passion to see the Biden-Harris ticket prevail?
Yeah, I would say I'm all about holding people accountable. And I think that we can do that in healthy ways. I think that holding our leaders accountable does not mean that they are the enemy. And I am so appreciative of Biden and Harris's want and need to stop abuse of power of drug companies. And it's one of the biggest reasons why I am an advocate, particularly in the HIV community. My HIV medication. So when I was first diagnosed, I ended up finding a doctor very quickly because, again, I'm very privileged and I am so grateful to God for that. But I'm sitting down with someone from the Department of Health. It was like a mandatory thing. And at the time, I was trying to acquire the medicine that my doctor had prescribed, but it was too expensive. And so my insurance wasn't covering it. And therefore, the pharmacy was denying me the medication for all these different reasons. And, this is a medication that doctors are telling me, you need to start taking this yesterday. And yet here I am at the pharmacy trying to get this life-saving medication, and you're telling me that I'm denied this medication. So I'm sitting in the Department of Health and I'm, telling him like, I'm trying to get this medication and, I'm getting denied at the pharmacy. It's so weird. And he responded by saying, oh yeah, it did just come out. It's like the Ferrari of HIV meds. And I responded to him and I literally said, do you know how disgusting that was that you just said that my life-saving medication is the same as a Tesla or a Ferrari to you? Like, this isn't a game for me because my T cells are going down, and without this medication, I don't live. And so that wasn't nice, and that wasn't funny, and that didn't help at all. Because of my insurance, my medication is $0, and because of the Gilead copay program, thankfully. But if I did not have insurance, if I didn't have additional third-party support, my medicine would cost $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
And then if I wanted PrEP, which I tried to acquire for years, and I was denied PrEP for years until I gave up. And then the following year, I got infected. And for the same reasons, I was denied PrEP over and over and over in all these places. I'm so thankful to see that PrEP is being made so available to people now. So I don't understand how we are allowing such abuse of power. I don't understand how we are not seeing that there are people who are dying because they literally cannot pay for these medications. And when someone is worrying about a roof over their head and where their next meal is coming from, or if they're going to feed their families, they're not thinking about HIV medication. They're not thinking about a COVID vaccine. They're not thinking about their vitamins for the next day. So there are so many systemic issues that we need to solve. And the fact that healthcare is a right, and yet we are still allowing companies to abuse consumers and abuse Americans and let people get sick to the point that they almost die and then give them the drugs that they need to keep them alive. It's something that needs to change. And so I'm so grateful to the Biden-Harris campaign. They want to limit launch prices for drugs that face no competition, like the one that I take. It was produced in the Netherlands. It was met with great success, and now it is paving the way for so much progress in the HIV community, allowing consumers to buy prescriptions from drugs from other countries. My medication is made in another country. So I really appreciate so many of the nuances that they're trying to attack when it comes to really solving the healthcare crisis in this country.
Vasthy, you mentioned that hearing Kamala speak about this is the first time that you've heard it. Heard someone talking about women's health care. Can you talk about the Biden-Harris ticket and what their platform means for women, for you?
Yeah, I think what I mean, my depression came from a lot of different things. Again, a lot was just not stopping, but there was a huge part of it that was, I never felt so like nobody cares, like, because they know that women are, the craziest thing is that the thing that's killing women, like the miscarriages, the fibroids, all of the health, the breast cancers, all that stuff, so much of that has to do what is marketed to us from the day we were born to be pretty and presentable. All the stuff that's in perfume, everything that smells good, low fat cheese, sugar free, like be skinny, be this, be that. All of that stuff has these cancer stuff in it, and all these things that we all put into our bodies. And so it's just that circle is just so bizarre to me. It's just such an ignored thing that I didn't even realize until I got sick, and I'm a woman. And when I speak very openly about my miscarriage and about my fibroids and about that stuff, because when I wrote about it, that day that I broke down, when I wrote about it, I got so many people writing me. I think I had Dimitri, you understand, like hundreds and hundreds of women saying, I've been there, or even husbands saying, I watched my wife go through this, all of this stuff. And we don't talk about it, so we don't know. And the more the people above talk about it, the more we can start to address it. Because it's getting worse. It's getting worse. And again, the Black community feels all those things. And a miscarriage isn't just, oh, I lost a baby. A miscarriage is a lot of different things. What it does to you psychologically, what it does to just the way it affects you completely. It's like, I think about it almost every day, and there's no way, it's very, very traumatizing. So anyone that is going to talk about that and approach those things, I am here for.
Well, Joe Biden definitely has a plan that is all about giving insurance to absolutely everyone. And so, Doug, in particular, could you talk about how this is going to impact everyone, and then zeroing in specifically about people in the entertainment business and our community?
Well, I mean, we go, as actors, we go in and out of insurance. We talked about that. But what we didn't talk about, and I guess Dimitri spoke about it somewhat, the cost of medication is ridiculous. We are the number one industrial nation in the world, and we have the most expensive medication in the world, and we don't get the best outcome from our healthcare of the other industrialized nations in the world. For us, and certainly for the health fund, the Equity League Health Fund, part of the Broadway health insurance, we automatically assume that the health care, that the drug prices are going to go up 8, 10, 12% a year. That is, I mean, inflation rate is what, 2%? But the drugs are going 12%, sometimes more than that a year. And we as a union can't, and the producers can't keep up with that, asking the producers to pay more money and more money and more money, because that then they are taking the money away from the salary. So our salaries as actors have been artificially or have been kept down because we have to keep pushing the healthcare prices up and keep charging our producers more so that we can pay for the 12% increases in pharmacy, or the 8% increases in pharmacy. It's not sustainable. It has never been sustainable, and until we get our hands around what is happening with drug prices and with the health costs in this country, we will not have a sustainable system. And certainly for our union, and certainly for those people, the trustees that are working, trying to find a way to make this work so that we can get coverage for our members, and yet not getting enough money in, because there's only so much money you can ask somebody to give you without then making your salary so low it doesn't make any difference, and then you're working for healthcare and you don't have a salary to eat on. Until the Biden-Harris ticket is going to make the difference that we need in getting the drug prices down and getting the health care down, because if we get a marketplace that we can all afford, that will force the health care prices down. If we can get generics, and if we can get the drug companies to buy at the Medicare rate and only pay at the Medicare rate, that will bring the drug prices down for everyone, and that will make healthcare more affordable and easier for us to give to our members. There is only one choice. It has to be Biden-Harris, because they're the only ones that care about what is happening to our healthcare in this country.
Oh yeah. And just focusing in, and you all have addressed this, that there are so many people in our community who have and then they don't have health insurance. How will the Biden-Harris work on behalf of healthcare help all of our colleagues that are without healthcare?
If you can buy into, if you're able to buy into the ACA, or even buy, they're talking about buying into Medicare, lowering the age to buy into Medicare. If you're able to do that, that will help between the time. If you're working 24/7, if you're working every day of the year, you have health care. But for most of us who work 6 months, or maybe work 6 weeks here and 6 weeks there and another 6 weeks there, we cobble together these jobs, we cobble together health insurance, and we get it for however long we get it, and then we're out of it. And we're trying to cobble it together again. And while we're out of it, if we had an opportunity to buy into something affordable to carry us between our health care, this would solve all of our problems. A lot of our members, and I've talked to hundreds of our members, who say, I work for my health care. I think that's sad. I'm sorry to say. We do our work because we're artists, and we shouldn't necessarily be saying, I got to take that job, not because I want it, but I got to take that job because I need 3 more weeks to get my health care, because if I don't get my health care, and if I get sick, I can't pay for my medication, or I can't go to the doctor. Having an affordable a plan, having ACA affordable, having Medicare, I'd like Medicare for all, but having Medicare for, bring it down, bring the age down, let people buy into Medicare at a younger age, get some of those people covered, and then get the ACA built up and get a subsidy, and we're really going to be on the way to solving our healthcare issues.
Dimitri, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, it's so much of what you're saying, Doug. I mean, what is even worse is that it's not just artists, it's everyone, right? Like your health insurance is tied to your employment for so many people. And it seems like we get the short end of the stick, because we have to, actors have to cobble up, all these weeks together. And I feel fortunate that I've never been without health insurance my whole life. And thankful that the union has been able to do that for me, and, to pay a $100 premium. Yes, it's gone up to $3. And I had a conversation with someone who was like, I can't believe it's going up to $3. And, and I was like, I hear you. I said, but Cobra is 900 a month for a lot of other people. So 300 per quarter is something that I will take gladly. But for me, like, this affects everyone, and your healthcare should not be tied to your employment. You shouldn't have to think, I need to get, whoever you are, artist, non-artist, you shouldn't have to think, I need to find a job by this month because I need health insurance because of. That doesn't make any sense to how I believe we should be living in a fair, healthy, just, and equitable world. For me, I am interested in seeing that all people get covered. It should not be that Black Americans make 12% up of the population, and yet still half of the country's HIV diagnoses as of 2018, and 26% of that half are Black, gay, bisexual identifying men. Only 60% of Black Americans have access to proper health care. And of all Black Americans, less than half of us are virally suppressed. So there are 54% of Black people out in America who may not even know they have HIV, whose HIV may have transitioned into AIDS. It doesn't make sense that people don't know that they have HIV and are walking around and then engage in acts that put other people in danger. And that's what happened to me. And I'm someone who was trying to find PrEP, and I was still infected, and I was covered. So the fact that there are people in America who just don't even have access to a pill, that can't be anymore. And we need to make sure everyone is covered.
Absolutely. It's hard to ignore the topic of COVID. How has COVID impacted each of you, and also just the whole perspective on health insurance? Vasthy, do you want to talk about that?
COVID has affected me very, very, very deeply. For so many different reasons. People just deciding not to wear a mask just because they don't want to makes no sense to me. And it's been, for me, the most confusing thing about human beings ever. I saw, I have a friend of mine, we moved to LA at the same time, Amanda Klutz, and she, we were together, and I remember when her husband, Nick, we were all supposed to go out. I remember when he thought he just had like a cold. And I remember when she took him to the just to go get antibiotics, and that was like the last time she saw him fully healthy. And I watched my very, 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 very close friend watch her husband die, her 42-year-old healthy husband die of this disease. And their insurance ran out, and they had to, luckily, the community's so great that there was, people were able to help in that way. But that's the best, that's not even the best case scenario. And they were able to be covered. I can't imagine what other people in this country are going through. And Nick lost his life, to COVID. And so my friend has a 1-year-old son in a city that she just moved here, with not much support, and she's having to face a life now where she's raising a 1-year-old by herself. And it's just that's the reality of this thing. I don't think people really understand the personal effects that COVID is having, and they just see a number. Oh, this many people died. I'm worried for everybody's physical health. Yes, I'm really worried for people's mental health and what COVID is doing to everybody. Because even if you survive COVID, even if you don't get COVID, if you're lucky enough not to have someone that died from COVID, I personally had 64 friends that had COVID to various degrees because the Broadway community was hit, punched in the face by it. It breaks my heart. And I don't know. I don't even know what the solution is to that, but I'm worried still.
And as we all know, we're learning every day that if you have it and you recover, that doesn't mean it's over. This is going to be something, even if there's a vaccine and we move on from this, that's going to be with a lot of people as far as their healthcare is concerned for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Let's all take a moment, if we can, and just think privately about all the people that we've lost to COVID. Thank you all for doing that. Dimitri, Doug, do you want to talk about COVID and its impact on your own lives, on what the Biden-Harris administration means for all the people who are dealing with it, and as Vasthy pointed out, will be dealing with it as far as mental health issues and everything else for a very long time to come?
For me, I'll take it from a point of view of what it has done to our industry. The theater industry will be the last, probably one of the last ones to come back, because people are not going to be willing to sit in a darkened room with 1,000 other people, with one person coughing 2 rows behind them, worried about their health, until there is a vaccine and until 300 million people are vaccinated. And so as a result, our members are falling off their health coverage. Because as Dimitri said, while we don't want it this way, health coverage is attached to your work. And what's happened is people are not working anymore. And so health coverage is they're dropping off. Their health coverage is ending. It's ending. And every month I see 300 here, 300 more, 300 more, until at some point no one will be covered of our members because our industry is in the shape that it's in, which just makes me so sad. But in the meantime, until this is under control, until we have an industry back, we have to have health care for our members, right now we have between 7,000 and 8,000 members covered. In a year from now, unless work comes back, none of those people will be covered. And when they're not covered, if there is not Medicare for some of us and ACA for the rest of us, I don't know what these people are going to do. We talk about mental health care. That's a big issue come at the end of this, when there is an end. But there's also all of those people, all of those actors and stage managers and technicians. One of the biggest industries in New York City is theater. The money that theater creates outweighs all of the sports complexes in the tri-state area in terms of what the money that Broadway brings in, the Broadway box brings in.
Yeah.
Until somebody recognizes that this is an engine that runs the city and runs the state, and they do something about it, we're going to have a problem. And I think the Biden-Harris ticket understand that. I know that the governor understands that. New York governor understands that. I think the mayor understands that. They need to get behind our industry, because this pandemic has changed life as we know it. That's enough for me now. I'm sorry to be so negative.
No, it's so true. It's just true, though. That's not even negative. It's just true. It's just a fact.
I think this is actually very light conversation. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true.
No, Doug, that honestly made my stomach just sink a little.
No, my stomach. My stomach.
My stomach just literally went boop,
Sure.
outside of me. Great. Well, because I think of just my own health insurance, right? Like that'll be up come spring next year. Thankfully, thankfully we have our Gilead Advancing Access cards that helps us, with medication for people living with HIV. But again, we have to rely on all of these third-party systems to ensure our well-being and our safety and our protection.
It's so stupid.
And it's just so
it's so dumb.
It doesn't make any sense. And I think about particularly those living with HIV who are older than I am, and a lot of the work that I do is intergenerational. And so speaking to mentors of mine and friends of mine and just people who reach out, I've been hearing, or I had been hearing particularly at the peak of all of this, that this was reminding people of the AIDS epidemic and in the 80s, and still epidemic today, but reminded them of the 80s and of the 90s, and people were going back into depression, and people were getting triggered to the point that those of us who had been adherent to our medication for so long started to fall off again. But even that one pill sometimes is too much for a person to take, because they look at that pill, and that pill can be the mistakes that they made, can be the lover that they trusted, can be their reminder that if they don't take this pill, it can be the end for them. And that can honestly push someone to not even want to take it. We put ourselves in these fight or flight responses before we've even gotten to what the actual outcome is going to be. So we put ourselves in those scenarios and make ourselves stressed. And that's why so many people living with HIV don't stay adherent to their medication, because of that trigger, because of the trauma, and because of the lack of access. Some people just give up. And I, like Doug, I'm just so worried for so many people, because even before all of this, there was such a lack of access. And I think about the fact that we need to address the institutional rules and the policies and corporations that allow this to happen. And there are too many people dying prematurely, too many Black people dying prematurely. And that is something that we should all be livid about, to see all of these beautiful human beings, all of these souls who have so much to give in the world. They're not just numbers, they're not just statistics, they are people who are losing their lives prematurely, and we're allowing it to happen. This administration is sitting back and allowing it to happen. I know that you don't care about, I know you don't think all lives matter, because you're clearly watching hundreds of thousands of people die, and thousands are dying by the day. And so many people are getting infected, and you're just turning an eye and pretending that it's gone. So don't tell me that you believe that all lives matter, because clearly that's not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No, oh no, I go through phases where I'm like angry, and then I go through phases where I'm like, this is so stupid. What is like, it's so dumb. Just stop it. Just stop.
Wow.
You know what you're doing is wrong. You know that everybody deserves to be able to be taken care of. You know that the money is there to do it. This is a first world country. There is absolutely no reason why anybody should be dying without medication or care. There's zero reason. And it's just so dumb. You know what I mean? I don't understand. I don't understand. I try to understand, and that makes me want to just go, ah! So I just, and that's why I'm just like, it's just dumb. Stop, you know?
I try not to be as angry as I get. But sometimes I get so angry because I see so much wrong and so much bad. And I get so angry, and then I go, the only way we can fix any of this is to vote for Biden-Harris. There is no other. There is nothing else. There is no other way to fix this. I mean, we all have to get involved. Dimitri is, and both of you are so involved in your communities, and that is what we have to do. We have to individually be involved, but we also have to get those people that have led us down this horrible path out. We have to get them out. We need Biden and Harris, and then we need the down ticket all the way down to dog catcher.
Down. That's what it is, all the way down. That's exactly
all the way down
to dog catcher. And then and then we will at least start on the way to fixing these problems.
And I think something that will hopefully help people who are watching, who are on the fence or are not planning to vote or get registered. We're not marrying our vote. You're not marrying your candidate. So sometimes you may have to make a decision that will force you to make a compromise you're not willing or wanting to make, but it moves us all forward on the path to progress and to where we need to be as a country. And therefore, we got to vote. We got to vote blue, and we have to
Yeah.
do a down ticket.
And and I want to like literally picking off exactly what Doug just said and exactly what Dimitri said. Look, I grew up a dark-skinned black immigrant girl in Birmingham, Alabama. I could write a novel. However, I spent the last election trying to convince people to care or fighting with people, and it's one of the reasons I got sick. Your energy would be so much better used getting people that actually agree with you to vote. There's no, it's in a month. It's not. It's like in 2 months. If people know who they're going to vote for, it's just a fact if they're going to show up and vote for it. You are not going to convince anyone who has voted for Trump with all of the things that happened. If they still think that he is the president that should be next, you are not going to change their mind, especially not through Facebook's or social media or through text message. So stop it. Take a deep breath, because I totally get you. That's who I grew up. I went to an almost all white high school of Republicans and Confederate flag wavers. I get it, but there's no use. There are people that are on our side, and we have to convince them that it's worth it. It's why I spend so much time with young people, because we think that when we say there's no hope and no, like, a passing comment, that it doesn't affect. But if you're a young person, you're like, well, they said there's no hope, so I'm just not going to vote. They listen to everything
Yes,
we
they
say.
do. Yes, they do.
listen
Young
to-
people.
And I have a very, like, all my followers are young because of SpongeBob and the Prom. And so I have to be very aware. I was looking back at how I treated last time, and I was like, ish, maybe not this time. Instead of bashing and continuing to bash what you hate, you got to promote what you love and go from there. It is the only way to do it. You got to bring some light into this election, and there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it, but you got to figure that out. People respond more to that.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I have taken to decide. I have pretty much decided that those folks, I don't have too many of them left in my social circle, but those folks who actually are going to vote for that other person and not vote for Biden and Harris, I'm letting them be. I'm just going to let them be, and I'm going to find the people that are maybe on the fence, or maybe I don't need to vote. No, everybody needs to vote, and because the only way to change this is to make it a big statement, not just just barely eking out the election. I want this to be a blowout election, because we have to tell the rest of the world that we're serious about protecting one another.
Yep. And as a shameless plug, as a co-founder of Broadway for Biden, if you have not downloaded the Vote Joe app, please download the Vote Joe app.
It's a great app.
It will go through all of your contacts and show you who in your contacts are not registered to vote, and then takes you through a perfect little easy process. Text your friends who are not registered to vote, and allow them to go on an easy process through the app to get them registered, no matter what state they live in. Please download the Vote Joe app. You can even see how they voted, how often they voted, who they voted, or what party they voted for. So it's a fun little platform. And also, please do not think that November 3rd is the election. We have to make sure that we get our ballots in early. We cannot be sending in mail-in ballots on November 2nd. We cannot be standing in line unless we absolutely have to on November 3rd. By October 20th, the majority of the states in our country will have early in-person voting. So on October 20th, please go vote in person. Make sure you're registered for mail-in ballots by October 3rd. And if you are voting by mail, please, October 13th, send it in via mail, please.
And just to tail in on that, when it's over, no matter what happens, even if they win, don't go, phew, it's all fixed.
That's just the beginning.
Yeah, but even the idea that somebody else could win makes no.
Yeah, we're not even going to put that into the world.
No.
When Biden and Harris win, you have to make sure and they will. You have to make sure you understand that the work hasn't stopped. We made that mistake with Obama. I'm taking responsibility for that as well. It's not, phew, fix racism, sexism, and healthcare, and LBGT, and the trans rights, and if it's all done, it's so not. It's like if you're about to run a race, you haven't even the gunshot hasn't even gone out. You're stretching. You haven't even left home yet. You're making a smoothie.
You honestly might have just gotten out of the shower.
No, you might have just got out of the shower.
Well, I can't thank you all enough. This has been so informative. You guys are amazing. And I think everything we talked about today makes what everyone needs to do so crystal clear. Everybody needs to get out and they need to vote this November with their heart. They need to go out and vote with a commitment for a better tomorrow that is safer and healthier and far more honest, as well as economically and socially just. And that is what we need. And we have to go and make that happen. So everybody, please get the app that Dimitri spoke about. It's called
Vote Joe.
It's
Vote
great.
Joe.
It's a great app. I have it.
Okay, very important. And get everyone you know to support the Biden-Harris ticket. And I want to thank Dimitri and Doug and Vasthy so much for being with us today. Thank you all. And hopefully we'll be able to celebrate soon.
You're great.
Yes.
You all are great.
You're great too, Doug. It was so nice meeting you virtually. You're so cool.
You too.
I love you guys.
Thank you all.
I go, we're in safe hands with these two. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm the old guy sitting here going, thank God we've got Dimitri and Vasthy here to carry us on.
I agree.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.